Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Grand Slam Journey podcast, where I, together with my guests, discuss various topics related to finding our passion and purpose, maximizing our potential, sports, life after sports, and transitioning from one chapter of our lives to the next, growing our leadership in whatever we decide to put our minds into. For me personally, areas of business and technology. Today's discussion is a continuation of my coffee chat series with my friends Anna and Dana. In last episode, released in January, we covered goal setting. And so today we reflect on some of the new experiments we have been running and testing out since our last episode, and some of the new things that happened in our lives since then. We also dive into things we're exploring and playing with currently, which is, by no surprise, generative AI. I know you have probably heard a lot about it, and so we wanted to share some of our thoughts and opinions about generative AI and the opportunities and risks we see ahead. If you enjoyed this episode, I want to ask you to please do two things that would help me greatly. One, please share it with someone you believe may enjoy it as well. It is a great way to let others know that you are thinking about them. And two, I would highly appreciate if you could take a minute and share a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform that allows you to submit a feedback. Lastly, please note that the opinions in this podcast are purely of our own and shall not be associated with any of the companies that we work for, Apple, Dell, and Ericsson. And now, enjoy the listen. Hello, Anna and Dana. It's great having you on the podcast again. It seems the goal-setting episode resonated with many people. I received some positive feedback. And so I thought it would be great to perhaps start with some reflections. And it can be either on the episode. I know we ended with some takeaways or things each of us may want to try and test and experiment with, or perhaps just reflection as what happened since last time we spoke and anything we want to share with each other and perhaps with the world.
Super fun to be here with you this morning. This is turning out to be a favorite Friday morning date. For me, a key takeaway last time was the idea that every Monday or the start of the week or the start of the day is a fresh new start. Oh my gosh, that was the revelation. So one of the things that has happened since that, and my kids are very grateful to you, Anna, is that I've been waking up early, sometimes on Mondays. And if you remember, I'm not a Monday morning person. And I have been baking fresh muffins from scratch on a weekday.
Super.
So this morning, I treated everybody to chocolate chip muffins.
Oh, that's amazing to hear.
I saw the picture on Instagram. I think they looked amazing, Dana.
Yes,
did you post
yummy.
it this morning too? I was like, oh, I wonder if Dana is having chocolate chip muffin with her coffee today when we're having a podcast.
I am.
Hold on, I need to turn my video, or you need to turn yours.
Yes,
I'm curious. I want to see them now. I'm jealous.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
What the coffee?
Yeah.
Ooh, love it.
I have no muffins, Dana. You need to bring them over to me because I have my cup of coffee.
So thank you. So for me, really, the key takeaway or the big thing is that mindset shift, that you're not stuck in what you tell yourself. You're not stuck in your preconceived beliefs, that you can always take another crack at things. And starting fresh on a Monday morning is something that I'm experimenting with.
That's amazing.
I love that. Seems like it's going great, Dana. So how many weeks have you been testing it out now?
Since we last spoke, so 4 weeks.
Wow.
There has been a lot of fancy breakfasts on weekdays.
Wow, that's amazing, Dana.
I love it.
That's amazing.
I feel like something with the 4th, 5th week, at least for me, when I'm testing something, it starts settling in almost into a habit. And that's when you realize, is this fitting in or do I need to iterate on it? So how's it sitting with you? It seems like it's really something that you're thinking about keeping.
Yes, it's fun. And the thing is, like, you don't have to commit to do that every single day of every single week. It's the idea that I can view the day or the week as the fresh start and decide to do something joyful with that fresh start. And that could be 1 time a week, 2 times a week. But I'm waking up at 5:50, which I used to wake up at like 6:45 and rush everybody to school. And that has been okay. Yeah. It hasn't been bad. It actually has been good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have been in the morning working out myself as well, getting up at 5:30, somewhere between that. And I actually feel now the 4th, 5th week, it's getting easier and easier. At the beginning, it was just such a challenge to get out of the bed. But now it's more natural than normally. But my big thing is me becoming American recently. I recorded a separate episode on that everybody can go and listen if they want to. It was the episode number 24. But I actually wanted to ask you about your experience, because when I was thinking about it, oh my gosh, like Dana and Anna are some of my best friends. And I actually don't know if they're citizens. Like, I think you both are, but I'm curious about your experience and maybe just take an inspiration of how you went through this. Because sharing openly, I found myself a bit confused for a while. Like, I've never thought about being diehard Czech, but now that I added the American to it, this is super weird, I'm going to tell you. It's so top of mind for me that every call now that I jump on, and even work calls, I'm starting to introduce myself. Hey, I'm Clara. I'm Czech American. I was like, I don't know why I'm doing it. It just sounds so stupid, but it's like this identity crisis, or not crisis, but I'm just trying to think what that means for me. And so I was just trying to hear your perspective, and what was your experience, if either of you don't mind sharing?
I think it's a sense of belonging, right? Where's your home? Where is your heart? And that becomes your identity. My heart is in 2 places. My country of origin, obviously, because that's where I grew up, and some of the culture that comes from there, and the beautiful nature of that country. That's something that no one can ever take away from me. So I carry that with me, but also it's sort of a gift as I move to the States, because I bring that with me as seeing things from a different perspective than people that did grow up here, because they were going into the American culture from the very beginning and may take it for granted. Whereas I've had the fortune to see things from many different perspectives. If you come from a different culture, you start comparing as you're getting some smaller or bigger culture shocks and moving to a new country. And it's a level of adaptability also over time, obviously. And you become more and more American. I'll give you one example of one transition is the foods. I can remember the first couple of years after moving to the United States, I was sometimes having dreams about walking into a Swedish grocery store and I could buy the things I really loved eating, and I couldn't anymore because I was here. But over time, I started transitioning into new favorites and stuff like that. And this sort of the same journey I've had with many other things culturally, and I've adopted more the American way. And now that's sort of my identity as well. I've embraced that this is my home. This is where my family lives. This is where my kids growing up. And I really love the country and the people. So embracing both is a great gift that you have.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your nationalization day? Did you feel any different like during that naturalization or the period after that?
Yes, it was a milestone for sure. Something that I wanted to go through, and it is a little emotional. You're embracing a new nation. At least I felt really passionate. I really stand for this country, and I like this country a lot, and I'm proud of it, and I'm proud that they are taking me in as well. So yeah, it was a bit emotional. But then also that comes down to anyone who has 2 nationalities, right? If you would ever come down to the question, well, if you'd have to choose, there's some countries that don't allow the dual citizenship, right? If it comes down to choosing, what would you choose? And that's a tricky question. That one I love to play with sometimes. Like if I had to give up one, which one would it be? And that's the question we might want to ask ourselves, like, what does our heart say instantly without thinking? Don't put too much thinking into it. But that's where your heart is at that time. And that thing, for me at least, is good to know.
Yeah.
So I know where I stand.
How about you, Dana?
I don't have much to add to either of your experiences. I listened to the episode, Clara, and I enjoyed it a lot. To me, it becomes interwoven with your identity. I've lived here for so many years. And the fact that I had children who were born American before I became American, gets you more invested in the country.
That's interesting. I always wonder how this works. You were here for so many years and then you have a kid that's already American, but you're not.
Yes. So going through that experience with them and seeing the country from the perspective of somebody growing up in it versus someone adopting it has also been interesting. To me, it came naturally. I mean, there's all the feelings that you both have spoken about, but I feel it's just part of my identity now and part of my heart. And I'm grateful to have adopted the U.S. and for the U.S. to have adopted me.
I'll continue to sit in on this to see, give it another month or two. If my Czech American introduction fades away.
It's like telling you a haircut.
Yes. Anything from you, Anna, you want to share or mention?
When Dana was talking about new habits, and first of all, I'm so delighted to hear what you had to share, Dana. Thank you so much for sharing that. That really warms my heart. I do have a new habit that I have implemented that I didn't take time to reflect on. There was a very wise man in my life. He's kind of like a grandfather to me. He emphasizes a lot of the importance to take moments for yourself because we're living in such a fast-paced environment. And he was telling me, if you can't set aside 15 minutes for yourself every day, then something's wrong with your life.
Yes.
And that statement and quote stuck on me over some time. And there was one morning a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't really sleep well. So I decided, you know what? I'm not going to try to sleep. I'm going to get up. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. My husband, he's wonderful. He knows my habits in the morning. I love my coffee. So he always sets up the coffee machine ready to just press a button. So I went downstairs and I pressed the button and it started brewing. And I just took a moment for myself and just grabbed my cup of coffee and sat on the couch and reflected. I gave myself 15 minutes to reflect, prepare my mind for the day, and just reflect backwards on things that had happened and what I would want to do the same or different. And really, that was such an amazing strength that I took away from that moment of just 15 minutes to go into the day. And I was really strengthened by that day. I decided to do it again, and I did it again. So now it's really worth getting up like that extra half hour in the morning and just take those 15 minutes to yourself and reflect and get off to a good start. So just to what Dana was saying, getting off to a good start can set the mood for the entire day or that whole week if you just invest in yourself a little bit.
I love that. I agree. Reminds me of a conversation with my partner last night. We were falling asleep. I was asking him what time he's going to get up. And it was like, well, are you asking me alarm clock or when I get up naturally? Because he's been getting up super early, maybe 4 a.m. sometimes. It's like, well, if I get up at 4, I have 2 hours by myself without you and the puppy bothering me. It's a quiet time, drinking coffee, because I totally get it. There's something about sitting alone with yourself and having time to yourself to just prioritize you. So he treasures this time the same way.
It's precious, to be honest. And it's true. 15 minutes. It's really not a whole lot, or whatever you need, right? Half hour.
Yeah.
But make sure you have no distractions such as TV or internet, because then those things will make time go away too fast. I mean, you need time truly for yourself, right?
Yes. Check in.
Introspect a little bit. Yeah.
All right. Moving into a second one. What's going on right now? Any current focus, top of mind, things we might be learning, trying out, experimenting? I know, Dana, you've been diving into the generative AI. Do you want to start with that?
Yes. I find the topic fascinating, and I feel grateful that we're living with it at this moment in time. I feel like we're on the cusp of a really big revolution. And that sounds so grandiose, but it feels like as if for the people who grew up when the internet was coming online, it feels that way to me. And I believe truly that the potential is huge for both good and bad. And that kind of keeps my head spinning in so many different circles. So I've been reading lots of articles, listening to podcasts, and playing with ChatGPT and DALL-E and some of the other tools. And I can't help but see my neurons firing about applications and things that we can do with it. So been super, super, super interested. I'm curious to hear what you guys' impression of where we are right now with the advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning, and what's your reaction to all the hype and the tools that have come online?
Well, I think it's a path of evolution. We're still trying to figure out how to get AI more sophisticated. And while we're doing that, I think it's imperative that developing AI and making it more advanced comes with a great level of responsibility as well. And I believe that also has maturity journey. And I believe that we haven't quite fully reached the level of responsibility as we need to take as a species, as human beings, just when it comes to the effects of social media. Just that's not even AI, but that's the step before. What have we created with the internet, right? And the use of internet and the dangers and the positive pieces of it. We're still struggling to regulate or implement regulations to have certain rules that prevent us from causing ourselves harm, if that makes sense, right? We're still seeing a lot of debates of the bigger companies in high tech that just launch this and people get addicted and sometimes can't handle it, or it can be paths of dangers. So I think it's important that we reach a really steady level of safety before we enter what else is the next step of the phase of what AI can bring us. I think they go hand in hand. So it's a huge responsibility we have. It not just venture out and see the excitement of what it can bring, but it can also bring other things that are not as pleasing.
Yes, absolutely. And on that one, I have a recommendation, and maybe we can link them in the show notes later, Clara.
Yes.
Because there has been a lot of hype this past week for the journalist who got access to Bing AI about trying to really piss off the software and getting all sorts of weird reactions. One, the reminder in educating people that this is not a living thing. It's a software. It's a code that's trained to respond the way it thinks you want it to hear. So for people who are not as educated or not as strong of will, it becomes really freaky when they think that they're interacting with a living thing. And there's a really cool article in the New York Times that kind of explains that in layman's word. The other aspect to it, unfortunately, our regulators are super slow to move. And maybe that can help motivate folks to some grassroots actions and motivating folks in DC to take up some regulation. But until that happens, I am personally glad that corporations like Microsoft are kind of like leading the charge on this. I believe they have a lot to lose if things go haywire, just because we're a capitalist system. Forget about their good intentions and how good of a people and organization it is. Just the fact that if things go haywire, and they can go haywire really fast, it can affect their stock. I think they are motivated to put in controls in place. And we're seeing that by limiting the number of query or back and forth you can have with ChatGPT, Bing AI, whatever they're calling it and whatnot. So I believe the danger is there. I just feel because of the social media experience is that both companies and people are much more aware, and perhaps that can lead us collectively as a society to move in a much more responsible way. That's the optimist in me thinking that this is where we're going to end up.
And I think there needs to be alignment in that too, right? That we all move in the same direction.
But I wonder if that would be too boring moving to the same direction. Competition is about creating something new and different. So maybe playing the devil's advocate. I'm all for regulation. I think there's a bunch of stupidity that has been developed and governments don't move fast.
Yeah.
But I think it's almost nature of the tech to push the envelope. And so if you always wait for government, I feel like there would be no innovation that ever happened.
That's true, but
and so you need somebody pushing it forward. I think it is a bit of how we humans take it. I agree. And I think we're in diapers when it comes to AI, ML, and this chat GPT. Everybody's talking about it. I've listened to so many podcasts, and there probably isn't a podcast that I listen to that doesn't have some sort of AI, ML, chat GPT sort of thing in it right now. It's such a hype. But where was I going with it is we're almost testing it and see what comes back. And at the beginning, I was super excited, and I still am. But I'm actually wondering how much longer now, because we have these innovation curves. The first one takes a while. Obviously, they've been working on this for a very long time. Now they learned something that is like a baby in the diapers. So I'm wondering how fast the innovation cycle going to go from now when it comes to developing all the other use cases. Example, ChatGPT for scripting. Somebody like me who doesn't know how to script wants to write an application. It can lower barrier to entry for somebody who wants to start their own business. So I can go in, type what I want the application to look like, whether I want it on Android or iOS or Windows, whatever platform I want to use, and it would eventually spit out that code and create that application for me. So I see it as a very powerful tool, but seeing all the mistakes and the buzz around, this is not even accurate because they're using old sets of data. How much longer will it take to then get to the next level of maybe even not 100% accuracy, but let's say 85, 90% accuracy? Is it the next 2 years? Is it another decade? That's what I don't have a good understanding. And I'm curious about the curve. How quickly is it going to accelerate to actually get something more useful?
Yeah, so I have something on that. I think in the utility of applying AI to solve use cases that can be monetized, we're going to see a huge, I believe, like a Moore's law type curve with exponential advancements. And just one example about the coding example that you gave right now, GitHub does have a feature that uses generative AI software from OpenAI that they've integrated, where it can complete your code for you. Mm-hmm. When you predict text, it can complete your code for you, or annotate your code and stuff like that. And Microsoft and their Azure ecosystem, they've started also including some of OpenAI tools in there. So where there's a utility in solving a specific business problem, I think we're going to see a huge explosion in innovation just because you can monetize that and you can test that. And the adverse impact of the technology is relatively not that big. Worst case is that you get a buggy code and you can go fix it. So you'll see people adopting it and trying it more. When it comes to things like integrating it with search and using it more of a social utility, I think that's where, even if the technology is advanced, I think we need to take it slow just because of the impact it can have on people interacting from a social perspective with a tool like that.
Have you gotten any useful answers? Because it's probably same like you. I've gotten to ChatGPT. I've asked a bunch of questions. Right now, I'm actually running out of questions to ask. So maybe I'm just not creative anymore. I don't know what to ask, because I know there are some people that go in circles and they end up with some interesting answers. And I always find myself sitting in front of ChatGPT. I was like, what do I want ChatGPT to tell me? Anything interesting that you uncovered or answers that you received?
I have a couple of examples. One, today is my son's and husband's birthday. And my son texted me.
Oh, happy birthday.
And I was scratching my head, what should I get him? And I usually go on Wirecutter and check the top 10 list for presents for teenagers and stuff like that. And I came up with my list and I asked ChatGPT, what are popular presents for 14-year-old boys? Give me a list of your top 5. And the list that came out where kind of like, that kind of confirms my research. And some of the things that I had in mind were already on the list. I would like, once I get access to Bing, to see the references where some of that data came from, just to give you a confidence in the answer.
Yes.
So that's one thing. The other thing is we were planning for vacation for spring break. And we didn't want to go far. We wanted to do something within a driving distance, and we wanted to be outdoors. So I asked ChatGPT, give me a list of resorts within an hour and a half of the area in North Texas where we live, where you can do horseback riding and outdoor activities and archery. And it spouted out like 4 or 5 locations that I've never heard of. And I went and looked and I was like, that's super interesting. I would never have gotten there that far just by using Google.
That is interesting.
What I'm curious about, did you try running it by Google as well? I'm curious how different this would be if you just did your search on regular Google, what results you get for that.
I did. What I like about the generative AI search is that it aggregates data and puts it in a form that is summarized, versus with Google, just like with any ad-supported business, you get inundated with the ads first, and then you have to go weed and look at the headlines and the summary to see, is this an article worth for me to go in and look at?
Yeah. So the synthesizing for you and the simplification.
Yes, it saves time. And I think the saving time and giving time back to our life with having this smart digital assistant on a personal utility level is the one that I'm super excited about. And on that, I have a recommendation. I know you guys listen to podcasts. You may have already listened to it, but check out How I Built This with Guy Raz. He had a recent episode with Sam Altman, who's the CEO and co-founder of OpenAI. It was a very thoughtful conversation. It kind of puts you inside the brain of the person who's at the forefront of this. And they covered a lot of topics and just provided a lot of food for thought for me.
Yeah, I'll go listen to it. I'm actually curious because one thing I'm pondering, this has been also in many other podcasts, is like this started as a nonprofit organization. Everybody donated a whole bunch of money because, AI is too powerful. No one organization can own it. And number of years later, it actually turned into a normal company, and Microsoft invested $10 billion in it and got almost half of the company's stake, that it seems like, based on the article. So
they do cover that.
It's just interesting.
Perspective on that one. So I highly encourage that you look it up.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll add it to the show notes too, so listeners can listen to it.
Speaking of the subject of AI, when I think of AI and the future, I always like to think in form of use cases. It's all about what type of use cases that we foresee. So I'm going to throw some at you, and maybe we can dwell on this and comment on it in the next podcast. So AI is all about the collection of data, multiple data, and you've probably seen so well. You can even take the image of somebody's face and analyze all of their facial expressions and reactions and way to respond, and you can reconstruct that into an AI figure as if it's seamless, that it's actually that person talking, which is kind of scary when we see it on social media sometimes, but it's exciting at the same time. So I'm going to throw this use case your way and see if this is something that you have even envisioned or heard about before.
I encourage you to look up Ericsson Digital Humans. We have a product for that.
Oh, yeah, I sure will. So, yeah, exactly. Holograms. What if you could collect data of a friend or a loved one or whatever, just get enough data to re-impersonate that person with a hologram? And I've heard of something, I can't remember the title of it, but the eternal life or something like that, that if that person ever passes away, you can share data or information or videos and memories of that person, and that can be reconstructed in a hologram so that you can actually sit opposite your dining table watching and interacting with a deceased person, but it's really just AI. It would respond, and it's already calculated all of the ways that person would logically respond to certain questions or comments or statements. So you can continue to have a conversation with that person just in a hologram layout. Would that be a good thing, or would that be a bad thing?
Wow.
So dwell on that, and hopefully I was able to depict that. It could be made possible.
Yes, I think I read about that, and I don't know, that feels taking hallucinations to a whole new level.
Yes.
Like when you put the boundary between what is real and what's not, I feel that could be a very tricky waters to chart.
That one is an extreme one. I have more, but we can take that in another podcast.
Yeah. You would have to, in some ways, try to accurately create almost consciousness of that person from the data set. So curious how large the data set would be and the accuracy. And even to your earlier point, the AI sort of responds the way you want it to. So I wonder with chatting if you can train it to be more accurate or less accurate than the person would actually be to begin with.
That's interesting. And would that be something people would even want? Or is it a good thing, bad thing? Yeah.
Gosh, we can go for hours about it for sure. I know, Anna, you have to drop. So anything to wrap up with? We have last minute here or so.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's very enlightening to have these conversations. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, I love the girls' time get together. It's been fun for sure. Dana, anything from your end?
No, I'm off to a great start for Friday and the weekend. So thank you. It's always fun to talk. And Clara, I've been curious. Last time we spoke, I recommended the Ember mug. How's that going for you?
I bought it and I first loved it. But then I think my problem is that I drink coffee with a little bit of half and half. And so depending how long it sits there, it creates after a while, or when the coffee runs to the end, this tin film in it. And that bugs me more than the cold coffee because it has this film on top of it. So I've decided to return it. But I loved it at the beginning. I think it's fantastic for people maybe who drink just black coffee. Are you just a black coffee drinker?
Yes, I am.
And then maybe I just love coffee so much that I've realized even cold coffee is good for me. I just drink it warm and cold. So yeah, I'm back to my regular coffee cups.
Yeah, I hope I provided them with that feedback. It's funny because when you're developing a product, you think of the use cases from your perspective. And when you hear how clients, customers interact with your product, you find out that, oh my gosh, there are so many different use cases that you didn't even imagine.
Yeah. I wonder if they tested it, or maybe I drink coffee too slow, or something about the film that keeps staying on top of it. I think it just ended up bugging me. So thanks, Dana. Have a great weekend. If you enjoyed this episode, I want to ask you to please do 2 things that would help me greatly. 1, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform that you use to listen to this episode. 2, please share this podcast with a friend who you believe might enjoy it as well. It is a great way to remind someone you care about them by sharing a conversation they might be interested in. Thank you for listening.